بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم إنا نسألك الإخلاص في القول والعمل، اللهم آمين. Last week we made an introduction to the new series of living longer with less time. Living longer with less time. We talked about how those before us, right, and if you even look into the science of it, that those before us, centuries and centuries and centuries before us, used to live a much longer life than what we live now. Right? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he tells us in a hadith that the average lifespan of my ummah, of my nation, is that of between 60 and 70 years. Right? So many of us will not live to see 100 years or even more than that. And even when people do, the very few who do, you'll often see them broadcasted on the news, right? 101, 102 years old person, right? But many do not live longer than that, right? And so we see the people before us, Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, who lived nearly 950 years, right? Almost 1,000 years, right? And that time he spent giving da'wah. And even the people who were not prophets, they lived many years. So how is it that we live in a shorter lifespan? How can we compete with those before us, whether they're prophet or not? How can we compete with those who had a longer time to live, more chance to do righteous actions, more chances to do righteous deeds? How can we compete with that on a broad scale, right? And this is where introduced the series Living Longer with Less Time. And this book that I'm deriving it from is the exact title, right? And it was written by Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Adli. His book is right here on top of the charity box for anyone who wants to look at it or delve deeper into it or look at the bullet points from it. I derive the classes from this book, and anything that we have questions about, we can go back and read this book. Please, if you take it, return it or read it, put it back where you found it so that others can benefit from it as well. And beside it is a QR code that you can scan. We'll talk about that in a minute. Right? So some of the hadith in this book, or some of the hadith that I'll talk about, many of us know, and some of us do not know. Many of us know, but some of us do not know. But the whole point of this series, right? The whole point of this series is to tie it together under the lens of time. Tie it together under the lens of time. How we can get the more reward with the less time that we have. That's the whole point of this class. How do we achieve more reward with the less time that we have? We don't know how long we're going to live here, right? We don't know when the angel of death is going to come and take our soul. So how do we attain that big reward as if we lived 950 years or even longer than that? So that's the whole point of the series. And what I want to talk about today, right? What I want to focus my halaqah on today is that time that we live between the Isha prayer and the forenoon prayer, aka what? What is the forenoon prayer also known as in Arabic? No. Duha, very good. Salat al-Duha, right? This is the prayer in between Fajr and Dhuhr. It's a voluntary prayer. It's a 2 rak'ah prayer, but there's a lot of virtue in it. And we're going to talk about this time between Isha and Fajr prayer, and the forenoon prayer. Now, of course, we know the hadith, very common hadith. Many of us have heard of it, some of us haven't. Where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's saying in a hadith by Uthman ibn Affan, narrated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, "من شهد العشاء في جماعة كان له قيام نصف ليلة ومن صلى العشاء والفجر في جماعة كان له قيام ليلة." That he who prays Isha in prayer, in congregation at the masjid, that is at the masjid with the jama'ah, right? That as if he prayed half of the night. As if he prayed half of the night. And he who prays Isha and Fajr in Jama'ah, in congregation, in the masjid, is as if he prayed the entire night. So Isha is half the night, Fajr is the other half. You put them together as if you prayed the entire full night. Now, what is this in terms of time? That instead of us praying the actual prayer, how many hours do we get to sleep a night, average? 8, right? 8, 9 hours. 8, 9 hours of worship. That instead, that while you're sleeping, is as if you prayed the entire night, right? Very attainable reward that all of us can attain. That rather, again, the point is not that we know and take this information and we become lazy with it, right? That, oh, now that I pray Isha and Fajr, I don't have to do Qiyamul Layl, or I shouldn't do Qiyamul Layl, right? There's a virtue in doing Qiyamul Layl, but the point is, under the virtue of time, that by attending the Isha and Fajr prayer in congregation is as if we prayed the entire night. Now, we know this hadith, right? We've heard it many times. But there's another hadith that I want to add to this that give us virtue in coming early, right? Many people come late, right? Many people come late. But the beautiful hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, which he talks, the way he says that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I'll read it in English to save time, no pun intended, that if the people were to know what excellence is there in the adhan and in the first row, right? And in the first row, and they could not get these opportunities except by drawing lots, they would have definitely done that. And if they were to know what excellence lies in joining the prayer in the first takbir, when the Imam first says Allahu Akbar, they would have vied with one another in it. They would have competed with one another in it. And if they were to know what excellence lies in the night prayer and the morning prayer, that is Isha and Fajr, they would have definitely come even if crawling on their knees, right? So there's so much to attain in these two salawat, in jama'at, in the masjid, Isha and Fajr. Why? Because this is the time of sleep, right? This is the time where we forsake what we love, and that is to sleep for the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. When we call the adhan, we say, in the adhan, as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm. The prayer is better than sleep. The prayer is better than sleep. Now, continuing on, right? Because I want to talk about a forgotten sunnah, or maybe not a forgotten sunnah, but a not often practiced sunnah. And that is what we do after the Fajr prayer. So we come, Isha prayer, first row, with the Imam, sing Allahu Akbar with the Imam, attaining their reward, right? And we come for Fajr on time, attaining the reward. Now, we finished Fajr. There's a beautiful reward in what we do after Fajr to the forenoon prayer. And we take this from the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh, in which he narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man salla al-ghadata fi jama'atin, thumma qa'ada yadhkuru Allah hatta tatlu'u ash-shams, thumma salla rak'atayn, كانت له كأجر حجة وعمرة تامة تامة." Right? That whoever prays Fajr in congregation, then sits remembering Allah until the sun has risen, then he prays 2 rak'ah, then for him is the reward like that of Hajj and that of Umrah. Right? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he adds, and the repetition is important here, where he says, tammatin, tammatin, tamma. Complete, complete, complete. Right? Number one, there's many benefits that we can take from this hadith, but the first is, right, how many Hajj can we do a year? One. Right? We can only do one. And even if we only get to do one in our lives, may Allah Azza wa Jalla allow us to do many Hajj in our lives. Say Ameen. Right? Even if we were allowed to do many Hajj in our lives, we always come back, if you experience Hajj, you always come back with the sliver of doubt. Was it accepted? Did Allah accept my Hajj? Did I do something that maybe it wasn't accepted? Right? But here, or maybe I didn't get the reward. But here, this is something that we can do. And why is it a forgotten practice, or why is it an abandoned sunnah? Because now we live in a time where we have to work 5 days a week, or maybe even more than that, right? So after Fajr, we either rush back so we can catch an hour of sleep, or we go right to work, right? But there is beauty in the weekend, right? That some of us have the opportunity that at least once a week, maybe during the weekend, you can try to implement this in your life, where you are implementing this hadith, where after Fajr, you sit in your spot, or you sit and make adhkar or read Quran until the sun has risen. Now Fajr is out, you pray 2 rak'ah duha, and you go on your way. Therefore, you're attaining the reward of Hajj and Umrah every weekend, at least once. How many weekends are there in a year? 52. So imagine you get the reward of 52 Hajj in 1 year. 52 Hajj, you can only do Hajj once a year. But imagine you attain the reward of 52 Hajj and Umrah, complete, 52 times in a year. And how many years do we live in our lives? Right? So it's a beautiful thing that if you can at least do this once a week and implement into your life continuously, you have a beautiful attaining of reward. Now, question: does this nullify our obligation to do Hajj? No, right? I want to make that very clear, right? Someone's going to come and tell me, hey, now people are going to think they don't have to do Hajj anymore, right? This is, again, Hajj is for those who are able to do so. But the point of the hadith, or what's note to point in this hadith, is the reward, right? The reward of Hajj and the reward of Umrah, right? So imagine that you waited all this time, right? Instead of waiting 52 years, right, to do 52 or get the reward of 52 Hajj and Umrah, right, that you get that every year, right? So now instead of waiting all that time, you can do that in the less time that you have that you're alive. But we see not everyone's able to do that, right? Not everyone's able to make it to Fajr, right? And we talked about that in Salat al-Jama'ah. I'll try to end here with the last 5 minutes. We talked about this in Jummah that if even we should not develop a sense of pride that we were able to make it to Fajr or that we were able to make it to Isha in congregation, because it was who that allowed us to be here? Allah Azza wa Jal. It is Allah who guided us. The very few of us, right? How many people were amongst us before, and now how many people are here now, right? So look at how Allah favored and blessed you that you are here right now for Salat al-Isha, and if you are here and are able to make it for Salat al-Fajr, right? But not everyone's able to make it. Some people are sick, right? The woman, maybe sometimes they want to pray at home. They're not obligated to be here. It is more rewarding for them to pray at home, right? All these different things, or maybe someone has to work. So maybe not everyone can stay after Fajr and sit in the same spot, right? And we see how the wife, I give the answer away, but Juwayriyah, radiallahu anha, who was the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we were told in a hadith that he had left for Fajr prayer and came back, right? He had left Juwayriyah in a state of ibadah worship. He left for Fajr and he came back after the forenoon prayer. He came back after the forenoon prayer. So he said to her, are you still as you were when I left you? Because she was in a state of worship. She was remembering Allah. And she said, yes. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, after I left you, I said 4 words 3 times, which if they were weighed against what you have said today, they would outweigh it. And that is, Subhanallah bihamdih, adada khalqih, wa rida nafsih, wa zinata arshih. The English translation of that is, glory and praise be to Allah, as much as the number of His creation, as much as pleases Him, as much as the weight of His throne, and as much as the ink of His words. Right? This is an authentic hadith narrated in Muslim. So we see here that, notice here that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't put a limit over what Juwayriyah said in her worship. That anything that she said, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, anything that she said during that time period in her home, that whatever was said in that time, maybe that was 2 hours, 3 hours, could easily be shortened and it would weigh heavier in reward with these few words. Right? So maybe you spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in your home between the Fajr and the forenoon prayer, and you say these, or you're in this state of worship, you're reading Quran, you're remembering Allah, right? That in the virtue of these words would outweigh all of the hours of worship. All right? So the whole point, again, gain the knowledge so that you can do something else with your time. Right? So instead of spending that time in ibadah, right, that you could say these words and do other ibadah, other things that are pleasing to Allah, other things that are beneficial, right? And this is where the QR code comes in, right? That if you know these words, may Allah bless you and may Allah preserve your knowledge and increase you in knowledge. And if you do not know these words, right, the link code for the hadith, right, is through that QR code. You can scan it. I felt that it would be better to have a QR code printed than to pass a whole bunch of papers that would later be thrown in the trash. It's something that you keep on your phone, memorize it, learn it, implement it into your life, and attain the greater the reward in the less time. May Allah Azza wa Jalla allow us to benefit and be most beneficial with our time and implement what we learn in our practice with the short amount of time that we have. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه منه اللهم ارزقنا الفردوس الأعلى وأنت خير الرازقين اللهم أجرنا من النار اللهم أجرنا من النار فإنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما اللهم إنا نسألك الخير كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم ونعوذ بك من الشر كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم رب اغفر لنا ولوالدينا رب ارحمهما كما ربونا صغارا رب اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب للدعوات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك الدين واغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Anything that I've said that is correct is from Allah alone, and anything that I've said that is incorrect is from me and from shaitan. And I ask Allah's forgiveness for me and for all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Huh? Inshallah. Always. I just want to say for the sisters as well, there's a QR code on the table in the back, and there's one again next to the book here on top of the Sadaqah box. Right on the Sadaqah box, black box. Assalamu alaikum. The one black box is for yes. No, I just try to make it 15 minutes.